The rifle weighs nothing now. Sergeant Andrei Volkov presses his cheek against the cold wood stock. Through the scope, he counts gray uniforms moving between the skeletal buildings. 60 meters, 50. The bolt scrapes as he chambers another round. 11 bullets left. 300 soldiers are coming through the snow. His platoon is gone. The radio is smashed. The warehouse behind him holds 200 wounded men who can't walk, can't fight, can't run. He's the only thing between them and the German advance. His finger rests on the trigger. The scope's crosshairs settle on a Wehrmacht officer pointing toward his position. 10 bullets after this one. He breathes out slowly. But this moment didn't start in the ruins of this factory district. It started 6 days earlier, when Andrei Volkov was just another scared kid from Kursk who'd never killed anyone, who couldn't even keep his rifle clean, who froze the first time artillery screamed overhead, the kind of soldier who gets people killed. Andrei had been a schoolteacher before the war, history, ironically. He'd taught 14-year-olds about Napoleon's retreat from Moscow while drinking tea that was more hot water than actual tea. He was 23 when the draft notice came. His hands shook when he held the paper. At the training depot outside Stalingrad, his rifle instructor had slapped him across the face. "You shoot like my grandmother loads potatoes." The Mosin Nagant felt like an iron bar in his grip, too heavy, too loud. The recoil bruised his shoulder purple. Other recruits adapted fast. They learned to strip the rifle blindfolded, to estimate windage, to breathe through the moment before the shot breaks. Andrei just flinched every single time. His accuracy scores were bottom third of his unit. The sergeant marked him down as adequate for infantry, not sniper material. But the Red Army didn't have the luxury of waiting for perfect soldiers anymore. By October 1942, Stalingrad was eating men faster than trains could deliver them. The Volga crossings ran red some nights. Buildings changed hands 6 times in a day. You measured life expectancy in hours. Andrei's unit was thrown into the Barricadi gun factory district with 16 men. They were supposed to hold a collapsed warehouse that overlooked a key intersection. Command said reinforcements would arrive in 48 hours. They didn't say reinforcements from where, or how, or whether those reinforcements were even real, or just words to keep you from running. The senior sergeant was a veteran named Dmitri, who'd survived the defense of Sevastopol. He had a scar across his throat where shrapnel had missed his carotid by millimeters. He didn't waste words. "The intersection is everything," Dmitri said, pointing at the map scratched into brick dust. "They control that. They flank 3 entire blocks. 200 wounded are sheltering in the medical station 2 buildings east. If the intersection falls, those men die." Andrei had nodded like he understood tactics. He didn't. He just knew that 200 men with shattered legs and butt wounds couldn't run. The first German probe came at dawn. Andrei was on watch when he saw movement. 6 soldiers in winter camouflage crossing through the rubble. His breath caught. His finger found the trigger, but wouldn't pull. Dmitri appeared beside him like smoke. "Breathe, aim, shoot." His voice was flat as a frozen lake. The German soldiers were 70 meters out now, moving fast. One carried a Panzerfaust. Andrei's heart hammered so loud he thought they'd hear it. He aimed at the lead soldier, squeezed. The rifle bucked. The shot went wide, sparking off a steel beam 3 meters left. The Germans scattered, diving into cover. "Reload." Dmitri's hand was steady on his shoulder. Again. This time, Andrei didn't think. He worked the bolt, found another gray uniform through the scope, and shot. The soldier dropped. He didn't see where the bullet hit, didn't want to. The probe was driven back, but everyone knew it was just reconnaissance. The real attack would come soon. Over the next 3 days, the pattern repeated. Probing attacks, mortar fire, sniper duels across the rubble. Andrei learned to shoot when his hands shook, learned to chamber rounds while staying flat against frozen concrete, learned that you don't see faces through a scope, just shapes that move or shapes that stop moving. But his unit was bleeding out. On the second day, a mortar barrage caught 4 men in the open. Andrei watched Pyotr, a farm kid from Voronezh who talked too much about his sister's wedding, try to stuff his intestines back inside his coat. He died before the screaming stopped. On the third day, a German sniper killed 2 more. The bullet through Dmitri's throat. This time, there was no miracle. The veteran died, choking on blood, trying to tell Andrei something that never came out as words, just gurgling. That left 8 men holding the position. Then 6 after an assault on the 4th day. Then 3 when machine gun fire caught the others retreating to secondary positions. By the 5th day, it was just Andrei and 2 others, both wounded, both feverish from infected wounds, both useless in a fight. The ammunition situation had become critical. They'd started with 200 rounds total. Between defensive fires and long-range harassment, they were down to 47 bullets. Then the radio took a shell fragment. The case cracked, static and smoke poured out. No reinforcements, no orders, no contact with anyone. Andrei sat in the dark warehouse that night and counted bullets like a miser counts coins. 47 bullets. Enough for maybe one more sustained fight, if he was careful, if he didn't miss, if the Germans didn't bring overwhelming force. But he knew they would. The 6th morning came like a held breath before drowning. Snow had fallen overnight, wet, heavy flakes that muffled sound and made visibility drop to gray shapes moving through gray air. Andrei positioned himself on the 2nd floor of the warehouse, where a hole in the roof let him see the intersection. His 2 wounded companions were downstairs, delirious. One kept calling for his mother. The other had stopped responding entirely. The building smelled like burnt wood, old blood, and human waste. Rats had moved in. They scratched behind walls, fearless now that the shooting had paused. Andrei's hands were blue with cold. He'd wrapped cloth around his fingers, but it didn't help much. Every few minutes he had to flex them to keep blood moving. The rifle was so cold it burned to touch bare skin. He'd arranged his remaining ammunition in careful rows, 47 cartridges, each one topped with a copper-jacketed bullet that weighed exactly 9 grams. Each one capable of punching through a man at 300 meters if the shot was true. He thought about rationing, maybe fire 1 bullet per minute, make them think the position was still heavily defended, psychological warfare. Then he heard the engines. It wasn't probing this time. Through the scope, he saw trucks, 3 of them grinding through snow toward the intersection. They stopped 200 meters out. Soldiers poured from the backs. Not 6 or 12, but dozens. Squads forming up with mechanical efficiency. Andrei's stomach clenched. He counted uniforms through the scope, lost track at 80. More kept coming. A full company, maybe more. An officer in the center was pointing, directing units to spread wide, to encircle, to flank. This was the real push, the one that would break through. The medical station was 2 buildings away, 200 wounded men who trusted that someone was holding the line, who believed reinforcements were coming, who had no idea they'd been written off days ago. Andrei worked the bolt, chambered around. 47 bullets against a battalion. The math was simple, impossible, final. But there was no one else. He aimed at the officer. Range, 190 meters. Wind, minimal. Snow, reducing visibility but not enough to matter at this distance. The shot broke clean. The officer dropped. Immediate chaos. Soldiers scattered, shouting, trying to identify the shooter's position. Andrei was already working the bolt, already searching for the next target. 46 bullets. A machine gun team was setting up near the burned-out truck. He couldn't let them establish a firing position. He shifted aim, breathed. The gunner was feeding the belt when Andrei's bullet took him in the upper chest. The assistant gunner grabbed for the weapon. Andrei's next shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him into the snow. 44 bullets. The German infantry was finding cover now, professional, fast. They'd identified his general position, second floor, northwest corner. Rifle fire started cracking against the building. Bullets punched through the thin walls, kicking up splinters and brick dust. Andrei rolled away from his position, crawled 3 meters, and found another firing angle. A sergeant was rallying troops near a shell crater. Andrei put the crosshairs on center mass and fired. 43 bullets. But there were so many of them. For every one that fell, 3 more took his place. They were closing the distance, 70 meters now. Soon they'd be too close. Soon they'd rush the building, and it would be over. A German squad was moving up the left flank, using a collapsed wall for cover. If they reached that position, they'd have a clear shot at the medical station. Andrei could see the building from here, bullet-scarred walls, red cross painted in fading white paint, faces in windows watching the fight. He had to stop that squad. He fired 3 times in quick succession. 1 hit, 1 miss, 1 hit. 2 soldiers down. The others broke cover, sprinting for new positions. He tracked, fired, missed. They made it. 39 bullets. His breathing was too fast. He forced himself to slow down. In through nose, out through mouth, like Dmitri taught him, before Dmitri drowned in his own blood. The Germans were coordinating now. Suppressive fire raked his position while squads advanced. Standard infantry tactics. Overwhelm the position with volume of fire, move under cover, close distance, assault. Andrei shifted to a third position. His shoulder ached for recoil. His ears rang from the constant crack of his rifle in the enclosed space. Cordite smoke stung his eyes. Through the scope, he saw a mortar team unpacking their tube. If they got that weapon operational, they'd drop shells directly onto this building. Game over. Range, 110 meters. Moving targets, setting up equipment. He fired twice. Both hits. The mortar tube toppled. The team scattered. 37 bullets. His hands were shaking now, not from cold, from adrenaline, from fear, from the weight of knowing this couldn't last. A machine gun opened up from a new position. Bullets stitched across the wall beside him. He felt the heat of tracers passing inches from his face, threw himself flat, crawled. His knee hit something sharp, broken glass or metal, and pain shot up his leg. No time. Keep moving. He found a 4th firing position. The machine gun was still hammering, but now he could see its muzzle flash. He waited for the gunner to fire another burst. The moment the weapon paused, barrel cooling or belt change, he rose, aimed, and fired. The muzzle flash stopped. 36 bullets. But they were getting smarter. They'd stopped advancing in the open. Now they used smoke. White-gray clouds began billowing up from grenades, obscuring his view. Shapes moved through the haze like ghosts. Andrei fired at shadows. Sometimes the shadows fell. Sometimes they kept moving. He couldn't tell anymore. 33 bullets. His throat was raw from breathing brick dust and smoke. His trigger finger a blister was forming. The rifle's action was getting sluggish, carbon buildup from continuous firing without cleaning. Below him, one of the wounded men was calling out, "Andrei, are they coming? Are we leaving?" He couldn't answer. There was no good answer. Shapes in the smoke were 50 meters out now. Andrei's shots had forced them into cover, slowed them, made them cautious, but caution only delays the inevitable. There were still dozens of them. I could hear officers shouting commands, reorganizing, preparing for a final push. He checked his ammunition. 33 bullets. The neat rows were depleted now, just scattered brass casings rolling on the floor where he'd worked the bolt too fast, too many times. The mathematical reality was crushing. Even if every shot was perfect, every single one, he couldn't stop them all. This was algebra with bullets, and the equation only goes one direction. But those 200 men in the medical station didn't know that. They were listening to the rifle fire, hearing single shots punch out over the chaos, and thinking, someone's still fighting, someone's holding. Andrei realized something then that made his chest tight. It didn't matter if he stopped them. It mattered that he tried, that the wounded heard those shots and knew they weren't forgotten. The math didn't have to work. He just had to make them believe it might. He stopped trying to kill everyone, started trying to make them afraid of him. A squad was moving up on the right. He didn't shoot the point man. He let him advance 3 meters, then shot the second man. The point man dove for cover, scrambling back. The whole squad stalled. 32 bullets. Another group tried to flank left. He waited until they were committed, halfway across open ground, then dropped the rear man. The others were trapped. Forward meant more exposure. Backward meant climbing over their fallen comrade. They went to ground in the worst possible position. Easy targets later. But he didn't take those easy shots. Made them wonder if he was still watching. Made them afraid to move. 31 bullets. He was playing mind games now with dying men's mathematics, making each bullet count not just for who it hit, but for how it changed their behavior, making them think twice, making them slow down. The smoke was clearing. He could see better now. An officer was screaming at soldiers to advance. They weren't moving fast enough. Discipline was cracking. Andrei centered the crosshairs on that officer, high-value target, the kind of shot that makes units hesitate. He breathed out. The rifle bucked. The officer fell. 30 bullets. Chaos below. Soldiers looking at each other, no one wanting to be next, no one wanting to be the one who steps up and gets their head blown off by the sniper who won't die. What Andrei couldn't see, what he didn't know, was the argument happening 200 meters back. The battalion commander was furious. One Soviet sniper had pinned down an entire company for nearly 40 minutes, killed or wounded 17 men. The attack schedule was falling apart. Other units were waiting for this intersection to be secured before they could advance. A junior officer suggested calling in artillery, just level the building. The commander hesitated. Artillery would work, but it would take time to coordinate, time to pull back to safe distance, time for the fire mission to be approved and executed. And time was exactly what they didn't have. The offensive timetable was rigid. If this intersection wasn't taken in the next hour, the whole battalion's advance would stall. Other units would be exposed. The entire operation could fail. One sniper was holding up a battalion. It was absurd. It was embarrassing. It had to end now. The commander made the decision. Fix bayonets, full assault, overwhelm the position. Andrei saw them forming up, different this time, tight ranks, bayonets glinting even in the gray light. This wasn't probing, this wasn't testing, this was everything they had coming at once. His stomach knotted. This was it, the moment when math stopped mattering and raw numbers crushed everything in their path. They charged. Andrei fired, worked the bolt, fired. A man fell every 3 seconds. It wasn't enough. They kept coming. Gray uniforms running through snow, boots kicking up white powder, mouths open in battle cries that sounded like wolves. 27 bullets. He missed, cursed, worked the bolt so hard it scraped skin off his palm, fired again, hit. 26 bullets. They were 30 meters out. He could see individual faces now, young faces, scared faces, determined faces, all of them running to kill him. 25 bullets. The rifle was smoking. His shoulder was one massive bruise. Every shot sent pain radiating down his arm. He ignored it. Fired, fired, fired. 22 bullets. 20 meters. His hands moved automatically now. Bolt back, brass casing ejecting in a smoking arc. New round from the dwindling pile beside him. Bolt forward, sight picture, fire. 19 bullets. 15 meters. He could hear their boots crunching snow, could hear their breathing. One of them threw a grenade. It fell short, exploding in the street below. The blast shook the building. Dust and debris rained down. Andrei shifted position, found a new angle, fired through the floor at a soldier trying to enter below. 18 bullets. The building's front entrance was being breached. He could hear boots on stairs, shouts in German echoing up. They were inside. He had seconds. Andrei grabbed his remaining ammunition, 17 rounds scattered across the floor, stuffed them in his pockets, grabbed the rifle, and ran. Not away, toward. He moved to the stairwell. The Germans were coming up. He could hear them, boots on concrete, weapons ready. He dropped prone at the top of the stairs. The angle was terrible, awkward, but it gave him surprise. The first German soldier crested the stairs. Andrei fired. The man fell backward, taking two others down with him. The stairwell became a choke point of bodies and confusion. 16 bullets. He scrambled back, found a firing position overlooking the stairwell. They'd have to come through that narrow passage, one at a time. He could hold them for. A grenade bounced up the stairs. Andrei rolled away. The explosion was deafening in the enclosed space. Shrapnel peppered the walls. His ears went silent except for a high ringing tone. He crawled through smoke. His leg wasn't working right. Shrapnel or twisted wrong, he didn't know. Blood soaked through his trousers. His own or someone else's, impossible to tell. The Germans came again, cautious now, knowing the sniper was wounded, knowing it was close quarters where his rifle's range didn't matter. But they didn't know how many bullets he had left. Andrei propped himself against a wall. Blood ran down his face from a cut near his temple. The rifle felt like it weighed 50 kilograms. He raised it anyway. A soldier appeared. Andrei fired. 15 bullets. Another, fired. 14 bullets. They were learning to wait, to coordinate. 3 came at once from different angles. He got one. The others drove him back with submachine gun fire. Bullets chewed through the wall beside him. He felt something hot tear through his jacket. More blood. Didn't matter. 13 bullets. Then the sound changed. Not German machine guns. Different, heavier. The distinctive hammering of a Soviet Maxim, coming from outside, from the intersection. Andrei risked a look through a hole in the wall. Fresh troops, Soviet reinforcements, were hitting the Germans from behind. A platoon, maybe more. They'd somehow forced the river crossing. They'd come. The German assault inside the building faltered. Officers screaming orders. The universal sound of men realizing they're being flanked. Some tried to pull back. Some tried to fight through to kill Andrei first. The coordination collapsed into chaos. Andrei took advantage. While they were distracted, while they were looking both ways at once, he fired, methodical, one shot at a time. 12 bullets. 11 bullets. 10 bullets. The Germans in the building broke, started retreating, running. The ones outside were already falling back, trying to reorganize under the sudden counterattack. Andrei slumped against the wall. His hands were shaking so hard he nearly dropped the rifle. He'd held, somehow, against everything that should have killed him. He had 9 bullets left. When Soviet troops reached him 20 minutes later, they found him unconscious from blood loss. He'd taken shrapnel in the leg, the side, the shoulder. Minor wounds individually. Together, enough to kill him slowly. They carried him out while medics worked to stop the bleeding. Through his fading consciousness, he heard them talking. How many were here? Just him, one man. Not possible. Look at the bodies. I counted 23 dead Germans just in this building, more outside. One man? Andrei didn't hear the answer. He was already slipping into darkness. He woke up 6 days later in a field hospital on the other side of the Volga. His leg was in a cast, his torso wrapped in bandages that smelled like iodine and herbs. A nurse told him he'd been unconscious for almost a week. Infection, blood loss, fever dreams where he kept counting bullets that weren't there. The reinforcements had held the intersection. The 200 wounded men in the medical station had been evacuated, all of them, not one lost. His commanding officer visited 3 days after he woke up, told him the Germans had pulled back from that sector entirely. The defense of the warehouse bought time for a larger Soviet counterattack. One man, with a rifle, had changed the mathematics of an entire battalion's advance. They were recommending him for the Order of the Red Star. Andrei just nodded. He couldn't find words. What do you say to that? That he'd been too scared to run? That he just kept shooting because he didn't know what else to do? The officer left. Andrei stared at the ceiling. His hands still shook sometimes. Phantom recoil, the ghost of a rifle that wasn't there anymore. Andrei Volkov returned to combat 3 months later after his wounds healed. They wanted to make him an instructor, train other snipers. He refused. "I'm not a sniper," he told them. "I'm just a school teacher who learned to shoot." He spent the rest of the war as a regular rifleman. Never talked about the warehouse, never sought recognition beyond what was already given. After the war, he went back to Kursk and taught history again. But he never taught about Napoleon's retreat from Moscow anymore. That lesson had become too real, too close to something he'd lived through. Students would sometimes ask him about his medals. He'd change the subject, talk about grammar instead, or literature, anything but war. One former student, decades later, asked him directly, "Is it true you held off an entire battalion with just a handful of bullets?" Andrei was quiet for a long time. Then, "I just kept shooting until someone told me to stop. That's all anyone did in that war. We kept going until someone said we could stop." "Were you afraid?" "Every second." "How did you do it then?" Andrei looked out the classroom window at the Kursk streets, rebuilt and clean and full of people who'd never heard artillery. Because being afraid of the shooting was less than being afraid of what happened if I stopped. The German battalion commander who ordered that final assault survived the war. In his memoirs, published in 1963, he devoted an entire chapter to the Battle of Stalingrad. In it, he mentioned the warehouse. "We lost 47 men taking a single building defended by one Soviet sniper. I have analyzed that engagement hundreds of times in the decades since. By every tactical measure, it should not have been possible. But warfare is not mathematics. It is human will measured in bullets and blood. That sniper should have broken, should have run, should have died. But he didn't. And because he didn't, 200 wounded Soviet soldiers lived. And because they lived, they returned to fight another day. One man multiplied himself into thousands by refusing to accept what was mathematically impossible." The commander never knew Andrei's name. Andrei never knew the commander existed. But both men carried that warehouse with them for the rest of their lives. The intersection Andrei defended was taken and retaken 4 more times before Stalingrad was fully liberated. Each time, someone had to hold it. Someone had to count bullets and pray the math worked out.
3 weeks after Andre's stand, another soldier found himself in a similar position. Not a warehouse, but a grain elevator. Not a battalion, but a panzer company. Not 12 bullets, but 8 grenades. That soldier's name was Yakov Pavlov, and his story would prove that Andre's stand wasn't a miracle. It was a pattern, a blueprint for what happens when ordinary men refuse to accept the mathematics of impossible odds. But that's another story, one written in concrete and blood, and men who had every reason to run, but chose to stay anyway.